right, so you guys are about to watch a really fun interview I did with my man Shawn from the Comics Pals. And you should know before we get into this that this was recorded before game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. Game 5 is tonight. Go Knicks. Also, before we get into the interview, a quick message from my friends over at Dynamite Comics.
Hey there, Dynamite fans. We got 2 brand new books coming your way this Wednesday, May 28th. First up, we have Thundercats Lost #3 from Ed Brisson and Rafa Labosco, with spectacular covers from Declan Shalvey, Clayton Henry, Megan Hetrick, Marco Falla, Jay Lee, and incentive from Rafa himself. Check out all those incentives from black and whites to virgins. And okay, maybe that's it for this week, but check out Herculoids #4 from Tom Snigoski and Craig Russo. This issue has some fabulous covers from Francesco Medina, Joseph Michael Linsner, Bjorn Berens, and Kyle Hotz, with their own black and whites and virgins to go with them. So don't miss out, all right? Remember, this Wednesday, May 28th, check out your local comic book store or on dynamite.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.
Well, guys, normally I don't do this whole split screen thing. I feel like it's weird. Like, I don't want to see myself while somebody else is talking. But I feel like Stephen A. Smith, like, I need my man on the screen right now. I need to see him as I'm talking to him. We have a special guest on the podcast today. My good friend, Shawn, is, a fourth of the Comics Pals. I don't know if I'd call him the most important fourth, but he's absolutely the front man if this is a band. But I wanted to have him on the screen right now because the NBA playoffs are going on. Tonight is night 1 of the Western Conference Finals, and I don't particularly care who wins the Western Conference Finals, although I think it could be an interesting matchup if the Minnesota Timberwolves come out of the West and then my New York Knicks come out of the East, because now you got the 2 teams traded for each other and all that drama in the finals. But also, what would be great about my New York Knicks coming out of the East would mean they would have defeated the Winter Soldier himself, Tyrese Halliburton, who every time I see this man, he's just jumping out of a car full of snow bunnies, and all I can think of is my man Shawn of the Comics Pals. So here he is. Let's give it up for the man. How you doing, sir?
Dude, thank you for having me. That was a winding road of an intro, but I like how you arrived at me through the cross section of snow bunnies, which is what I'm becoming known for these days. But there's so much more to me than just that.
We're gonna get into all that. We're gonna learn a lot about you this evening. I even try to do the professional thing and write down some questions ahead of time.
Wow,
who gets to do that anymore?
Dude, I have never been on someone else's channel where they wrote questions down for me. So I appreciate that.
Word. Yeah, no, the first time I experienced that, I was on the Short Box podcast with my man Botter, and somehow he slipped up and sent me the Google Doc. And I'm like, yo, you had written out the whole intro, all the questions, bullet points. I was like, I got to step my game up. This is crazy.
He's a good guy too. That was a great interview. I like that.
Botter's the homie. We got some cool stuff in the works that I can't really talk about because I don't really know if it's really gonna work. But I'm excited, and that's really one of the cool things about this whole YouTube space. Like, for me, sure, YouTube can be a revenue generator. YouTube can be like a tool that you use to increase popularity or whatever the case may be. If you got a goal, you could probably get to that goal through YouTube. For me, the most interesting part or precious part about my experience on YouTube has been the community and meeting people in the community. So Botter's one of those people, and you are another, my friend.
Thank you.
I don't even know how I first came across your channel, but every now and then I like to try to shout out, quote unquote, up and coming channels. Like, I like to, quote unquote, reach back. And, for me, I did a video. It was 5 YouTube channels I'm jealous of. And you guys absolutely took the top spot. So for the audience, if you guys aren't familiar, Shawn is a host of a channel called The Comics Pals. And they've been a podcast forever, but they, more recently spun it out onto YouTube as well. And they interview creators. They do two shows. They do the Comics Pals, which is kind of like the Saturday morning hangout, where they might have like a topic of the week, and then they're just riffing for like hours. And then they do Pals Pulls, which I believe is Tuesdays, right? No, it's not Tuesdays,
Thursdays, 6
Thursdays,
p.m.
because that's the weekly comic book review show, which I'm jealous of for a couple of reasons. One, there's no way I'm picking up all the comics and reading them by Thursday. And then I also don't have anyone that I can like banter with for these types of conversations until it's time for a podcast. So it's a great show. I don't know if I was the first to make this comparison, but I noticed a while back that the pals kind of fit very neatly into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song. And so I was like, oh snap. Shawn
Who's who?
leads, Tyler does machines, Kale's cool but rude, and Marco's the party dude. Like it works.
Wow, you're completely right about that.
Right? Right.
It does work. And
It,
then
it
you're our Casey Jones.
yeah, yeah. That makes me Casey Jones whenever I guest star. They don't really put me in every episode, but it's like I show up and I'm show when I show up, it's because I need to blow off steam. I won't be but so useful because I couldn't be a guest star being that useful, but I'm good for a couple of whacks with a hockey stick, and that's cool with me.
You're that Power Ranger, like you know how every season of Power Rangers has like the core group and then they add that really awesome one that comes a little bit later, like that Green Ranger.
Uh,
You're that dude.
that's what's up. I could be the Green Ranger.
Yeah.
But yeah, nah, man, I love you guys' show. I love what you do. And I wanted to bring you onto the show really so that other people can know what you do and even more important than that, like what inspired it, how you guys keep it going. And so I'll let you introduce yourself. Like what got you into comics? What got you into podcasting?
Wow. All right. So for talking what got me into comics, we're going back to when I was man 20 over 20 years ago now, which is crazy to say because I was a teenager. And the first comic I remember reading was Secret Wars. It was the original one. I went to Universal Studios on a family trip and they have like that Marvel section. And so I went into one of the stores and I saw Secret Wars. It was they had the trade, and if you look at that cover, it's got everybody on it, right?
Right.
And I couldn't believe that. You know what I'm saying? Like I had every toy of all those people, but I had never seen them in their native medium.
Mm,
So I got the Secret Wars trade. If I pulled it, I don't have it on me right now, but if I pulled it out, like it's worn, dude. Like it is
mm.
worn out. I have tape that I'm using to keep it together, the cover, because I've read it so many times.
That book's evergreen. You could replace that copy.
Listen, bro, there's way too many comics to buy to be rebuying stuff that I've already bought.
I feel you on that.
But I got that when I was 11, and then it still wasn't for another like 4 years until I really started reading comics. Um, I was gifted like a random issue of X-Men from a like a grocery store or whatever
Mm,
back when they still did that, and I was enraptured by it. And in the back, it said like, "Oh, if you want more Marvel comics, you can sign up to have them delivered." And it was like an annual subscription,
mhm.
and it was a super reduced price. And so I asked my aunt and uncle if I could do that, and I was allowed to. And the two comics that I subscribed to first were New Avengers, which was actually just starting, so with issue one, and then Ultimate Spider-Man. Those are my first two like weekly comics that I got into. And I was hooked, man. I couldn't believe how good they were.
Word. Now, you said you asked your aunt and uncle. Is that who raised you?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. Pretty
Got
much.
you. Got you. So having that, right, I guess the first person that comes to mind for me is Peter Parker. But I'm curious to know, like, just kind of how that experience shapes you as a person. And, like, was that something that you kind of read through in the comics as well? Or,
That's a funny question, man. Yeah, I started my start with superheroes came with like a lot of other people with the animated series. I'm a child of the 90s. So when I was 2 years old, 3 years old, those shows were just starting.
Hmm.
And my first experience with Batman, Spider-Man was not comics, it was those shows.
Right.
And so I had made that connection between myself and Peter Parker when I was a much younger kid. Like, wait, he's raised by his aunt and uncle just like me. Um, and it's interesting because as a black dude, right, there were no characters in any of those shows for me to look at and see myself in.
Mm.
So you almost have to kind of like look for the personality traits or the things about their life that are like yours and relate to. And I think for me with Peter Parker, that was that thing that he was raised by his aunt and uncle like I was.
Wow. It's funny. Like I've, well, I guess we could talk about it later at some point, but for me, I didn't get into comics till I was an adult, right? So for me, I had the same exposure. It was literally in daycare watching Batman the animated series, Spider-Man, the X-Men. I remember like before I would leave to go to school, they would have reruns of that old Fantastic Four series. So it was like I had comic or superhero knowledge. Like I had favorites from like every team. The Thing was probably my first favorite besides Batman, but I didn't read a comic until I had like a few like as like preteen or whatever because my uncle's friend would come from New York and bring him. But other than that, I didn't really have comics in like my daily life. But it's funny because on TV, it's kind of the opposite. Like maybe not in superhero shows, but black people were all over TV. And so it was like I was never really looking for someone like me. Like we had Bear and Jamal and Fresh Prince and Wayne Head, like all of that stuff. And then later came Static Shock, which I didn't even know was based on the comic. So I didn't have that experience until much later and kind of discovering Milestone and all that stuff. Like, oh snap, like these are kids that feel like me and my family. So, but with that, like having or kind of realizing that you're different from the characters that you're reading, um, is there something about that experience that like created like a longing, or was it just like whatever? I just like Spider Man.
Um, I think that my struggle with like identity as a person is tied to race on some level. It's
Mm,
not the only factor, but it's definitely a factor. Like I remember watching Fresh Prince and being like resonating with Carlton to some degree, like when like he doesn't acknowledge their blackness
mm,
completely. He's a little bit oblivious to that. And I think on some level, for me as a kid, like I didn't grow up around black people. My mother is the exact opposite skin color of me.
mm,
And everybody in my neighborhood is Spanish.
mm,
So like there was no black exposure in my life. Um, so it was a push and pull of like, how do I how do I learn to identify with my blackness if it's not present around me and the characters on television that I resonate with the most aren't black?
mm.
Which in this case would be like superheroes. And then like even with Power Rangers, right? Like the Black Ranger.
Mm.
Why'd the black dude have to be the Black Ranger? Stuff like that always bothered me.
Yeah.
And so there was a tension in my relationship with race. And then translating into comics, by the time I was a core comic book fan, um, that was something that I had kind of put in the rear view mirror.
Mm,
I was like, you know what? They're never going to make stuff for me. They're never
mm,
going to make stuff for people like me. But then Brian Michael Bendis put Luke Cage on the new Avengers.
mm,
And then he made him the leader after that. And then Brother Voodoo started to pop off. And he became a relevant character in the 2000s. I was like, wow, I didn't even realize that there were characters that could be this cool in standing shoulder to shoulder with Wolverine and Spider-Man and everybody else. There's Luke Cage. Then he had a baby with Jessica Jones. Wow, an interracial kid just like me.
mm.
You know what I'm saying? Then Miles came out in like what was that, 2010 or somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Holy snap. That's the character that I hope when I have kids that they fall in love with
Right.
because they'll be mixed just like he is.
Hmm.
So ultimately, I don't feel like comics have really reached the point where I can say, yeah, I feel great about race in comics.
Hmm.
But at the right time in my life, Bendis specifically started doing things that showed me that these characters are out there and that they're cool and they can lead the Avengers. Like, wow, who would have thought?
Word. Yo, that's so interesting because again, like we're talking about just being a kid of the 90s where it's like everything is sort of multicultural in a way, right? Like, but for me, I was always drawn to like the leader of whatever the team. So Captain Planet had a black dude. I wasn't checking for the black dude on Captain Planet, right? Like the Black Ranger was kind of corny to me. Now
Yeah.
I love the Black Ranger and like all of that, but hey, I wasn't checking for the Black Ranger on Power Rangers. And we can go on and on. Even like the one that stands out to me the most is the Burger King Kids Club. Do you remember that?
Vaguely, vaguely.
So if you ever went and got well, it wasn't a Happy Meal, it was a kids meal at Burger King. They had the BK Kids Club, and they had all these different characters. And now I got to look them up so I can get the names right. But you'll know the black kid because he's got the same like fade that every black kid had on every cartoon. And he's usually like he's usually good at sports. And his name was Jaws. That
Okay.
was the kid. The kid's name was Jaws. But the kid that I was like, oh, I like this one. It was let me share my screen. I'll show you.
Yeah.
Um, all right. This kid right here. So here's the whole BK Kids Club. We got Jaws, we got Lingo, Boomer, Wheels, is a wheelchair kid. That's interesting. We got IQ, the smart guy. We got Snaps, which is the girl on the team. But Kid Vid, I was all about Kid Vid. He had the cool
Wow.
glasses like Max on the Goofy movie,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember this now.
right?
Wow.
All that to say,
That's
I wasn't checking for Jaws, right? Like I don't did not care at all. But I guess it's cool because it's like as a kid, I didn't necessarily have to be like, oh, I'm the black guy, right? Like it was just, oh, he's there. I like this guy though. Although Gerald on Hey Arnold, that was a different story. He was the dude,
he was chill. Yeah.
right? But anyway, I don't know how we got off this on this tangent. The point though is, I was curious just how your experience one as like a sort of I don't know if you call yourself an adopted kid, but someone being raised by outside family members, someone being raised in such a diverse city as New York, right? Growing up in a Spanish neighborhood, I'm just curious as to how that shapes your interaction with comics, if that's something you're looking for, or if it was just kind of a byproduct, like, and you kind of came to terms with it later. But
Yeah, yeah. Dude, I was like you, man. Like Leonardo from the Turtles was my guy. The Red
mm,
Ranger was my guy. Like I've always loved the leader character, and that character was so infrequently black that I was just like, well, that's not how that works.
right,
But here I
right,
am leading a foursome of podcasters, and I'm the black one. So
right.
there you go.
You got revenge on society. It worked out.
Yep.
So, speaking of leading a foursome, right? We're kind of skipping around because I wanted to ask about your sort of podcast beginnings, but I want to just kind of reiterate for the crowd how important to me the ensemble of your show is. Like, for as much as we can call you the leader, the front man, whatever, right? The fact is that show is not the show without every member of the team. So I'm curious to know what you feel like maybe the best quality is for each pal.
It's funny that you say that the show's not the show without who's there because that was not the original cast.
Hmm.
Um, Originally, we didn't have Tyler. We had two other individuals, Pete and Phil, and um, there were five of us,
Hmm.
not four. And so those splits were disgusting, as you can imagine. um, But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun doing it with those dudes, and they left. They left the year before you and I clicked up. They left,
Mm,
and so we really had only been doing the podcast with Tyler now for the last 3 years, I want to say.
mm,
Um, I learned something critical, and I'm going to answer your question, but I'm getting around to it. I learned something critical by them leaving, by Pete and Phil leaving,
okay.
and that was that regardless of who is present, the show is the show.
Mm,
And the show is the show because we all have the same mentality about what that needs to look like and what that needs to be. And I had to realize, like, I'm going to show up no matter who else shows up
mm.
because this is what I love to do. If the bottom fell out and the other guys dipped and it was just me, there's a comics pal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the show will be what it is. That being said, I think Marco tends to look at things from very different angles than the rest of us. And so he'll throw something out there that's like, what? But also, we should talk about that. Like also we should dig into that.
Mm,
And it creates the opportunity to have conversations. Like, for example, he is interested in AI and he thinks it's cool and he wants to see the applications and how it's going to be used and he doesn't think it's just automatically bad.
right.
Whereas when that subject comes up on the show, the rest of us are not into it. But because of his perspective, we get to have conversations that we just wouldn't have if we all agreed.
Hmm.
So that's yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, no. Continue.
That's what Marco brings. Kale is really willing to like say whatever he thinks. Sometimes that can be, off-putting for some people, me sometimes. But it's a necessary component, I think, because there does have to be somebody whose tongue is a little looser than everybody else's.
Right.
And also, he's really knowledgeable when it comes to DC Comics. I mean, the guy has a master's in comics, he's a lifelong reader. So there are times when historical knowledge is required for a conversation, and Kale's almost always on top of that. Um, Tyler, he's the audio video guy. He makes sure that the show looks good, sounds good, all that type of jazz. And he brings the funny. It's rapid fire jokes.
Yes.
So whether they land or not is, going to be relative to your sense of humor. But I think that I don't always look for the funny. I'm a pretty, I guess, serious person.
Mm,
So having somebody around who can bring that to the table keeps the show light.
yeah. Yeah. I feel like Tyler keeps you on your toes, right? Often Tyler and I just end up in the chat, like pointing out whenever you say something pause worthy because you're not thinking about it in the moment. And it's just a fun thing to do.
Oh my God, dude. That's one of my favorite sort of bits on the show is you
Uh,
being in the chat and like calling me out. And we have our little back and forths.
it's fun. It's fun. What's hilarious is like, I tune into the PALS every Saturday. I don't watch PALS pools because I will almost always spoil something for myself. But still, I will tune in even to PALS pools and just be like, Shawn didn't brush his hair today, and then just dip out. Right? Like,
Thanks a lot.
yeah, no problem. No problem at all. I'm always good for it. But yeah, no, it's there's something about just the chemistry that you all have. And you're right. The cast kind of rotates in and out. Kale was on a break for a bit after the holidays. Sometimes I'll look and it's just you and Tyler. And, the show never feels like it's necessarily missing anything, but there is just something special about you guys as a group. Um, Now, you talked about splits, right? I know what I'm getting on this side of things, right? And if I had to split this 4 ways, I mean, let's be real, I'm not really making any money anyway. But splitting nothing 4 ways just feels crazy. So
Yeah.
if it's not finances that keeps it going for you guys, then what is it?
That's a great question, man. And I think every single person on YouTube has to answer that question. So we've been doing this for 7 years, 8 years, and when it started, there wasn't really a financial goal. In a lot of ways, it was me and Pete, who's no longer a part of it, wanting to continue to podcast together because we left the job where we were working in comics media at that job, but we just thought it was mismanaged and there were a lot of problems. And so we left, but we wanted to keep working together. And so we figured out like who from that other job could we also bring along with us. And ultimately we decided on Kale and Marco and Phil. And it was a lot of fun, but it also cost money.
Hmm.
And that's something that a lot of people who don't do what we do don't necessarily think about. Like we're on Zoom right now. We pay for Zoom every year. We pay for it. And so back then it was coming out of our pocket. And it's like, whoa, hey, I don't necessarily want to be paying for lawyers, for Zoom, for, hosting the podcast, all that stuff out of our own pocket. That sucked.
Right.
But at some point, really in the more recent years, the business started to make enough money to where we weren't having to pay out of pocket anymore.
Mm.
And that's when I was like, cool. I plan to do this regardless because I love podcasting.
Right.
I would podcast no matter what. But if there's the ability for A, me not to have to pay out of pocket, B, to maybe make some, shave some off the top for each of us,
Hmm.
and C, grow this and see what it can really be, then I'm all in, man. I love doing this more than I love pretty much any other part of my life. And I'm lucky enough to not have some of the tethers and things that and lucky is not the right word. That's not how my life went.
Yeah.
So because of that, I can do this the way that I want to do it.
Hmm.
And I there's never a day when it's podcast day and I'm not looking forward to it.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. No, this is fun. We were talking, before we hit record, just about how busy life is for me. We just added our third kid to the house. We bought a new house. There's a lot of responsibilities, a lot of stuff going on. But I feel the same way. It's like when I get to do this, this is like the most fun thing that I do, right? I have to keep it in perspective. Like it's not more important than like watching my kids grow up or participating in their development. Um, but it's like outside of that and like loving my wife, it's like I would do this all day. I almost love this more than I love reading the comics, which is weird because it's like if I wasn't reading the comics, I couldn't do this. But there's something about this interaction, the close knitness of the community, right? Like what we can talk about, meeting our inspirations and stuff. Like I happened to be in the room, uh, you know, when I don't know if this is you meeting Sal for the first. You guys had met before.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
had met before, but yeah, like being a witness to like you guys linking up in person once again. I know when I met Omar, it was a big deal.
Me
You
too.
know, and I'm in a group chat all the time with a bunch of comics YouTubers. Some of them bigger than me, some of them smaller than me, but it's like it's one being able to bond with people who love comics, but then also being able to bond with people who love talking about comics and sort of presenting them to the public. It's just been such a thing that I did not know that I needed in my life, but here we are.
Man, you just said it all. Like I was a fan of yours before you reached out to me or before you said something in chat and
Mhm.
then that kind of sparked us talking on Discord and everything like that. I was already a fan of yours. I
Mhm.
was a fan of Omar's before I first got to interact with him and have him on the show. I was a fan of Sal's and comic pop before we did our thing. So for me, getting to meet you guys and interact and like being able to say like, yeah, BJ's a friend of mine. Um, that is so important to me. And it's more important than anything else that we get to do because relationships will outlast all this stuff, right?
Right.
Um, and the day to day of it. Like our Discord, the Comics Pals Discord is non-stop. It's all day. It's people from all different walks of life, all across the country, other countries. And so there's constant communication and conversation. And that's something I've craved since I was a kid, man. I didn't have friends that read comics. And I was very shy. So I was not that dude who was gonna like go to the comic shop and just strike up a conversation.
Mm,
My experience of comics was solitary. And one of my major goals through doing this was so that other people didn't have to have that be their experience with comics if they didn't want it to be.
yeah.
There is now a community that you can be a part of where you're not going to get cursed down. Nobody's going to look down on you for your, opinion. If your favorite character is, I don't know, Howard the Duck, people aren't going to, tell you you suck or your opinions are crappy, right? Like it's a space, and your space is like this too. The Comics Are Dope Discord is the same way.
Mm,
It's inclusive, it's open to people, it's fun, and it increases the connectivity that you have to comics. Because on some level, I'm always thinking, well, what does this person think about it? What's BJ gonna say about this book? What's Omar's like what's my Discord's take? That's fun to me.
yeah. Yeah. I think that it's fun. So when I started this podcast, I started it with a co-host, my man Skip and Tosh. And I don't know if you were familiar with Skip, but he passed from cancer almost 2 years ago. Heroes right after Heroes Con 2023. But he was just like the resident indie comics cheerleader. And what I found out after he passed was that like he was super active on like everybody's channels. Like if you talked about comics, chances are he was in your comments leaving heart emojis and stuff like that. And but what's cool is over time I got to know like, you know what? This is a book that he would love. Even though chances are I'm not going to love this book, but I can see what he would love about it. And it's like, all right, cool. Hey, by the way, I came across this one. Check it out. And vice versa. And I think that is something that's really fun to be able to do, like, especially now. Like, sometimes I wish he was around just to see, because comics are so good, specifically in 2025. Like, it's like no matter where you turn, you're gonna see a great comic. I was just reading Battle Beast #1, and I was like, yo, this book is amazing. Like,
Yep.
I haven't even read Invincible, but
Fire.
this is so good. But anyway, but yeah, you're right. The community and like being able to have other people in mind when you're reading something. Like, I can't play sports, right? Like, I wasn't a basketball player. I did run track for a little while in school, but I can't do that now. And so it's like, I didn't join a fraternity. Like, what thing is going to bring me in a group of people that share so many interests? And like, the community is great. And I think you guys have done a better job than most of fostering an active and engaged community. Like, that's one of the things I envy about your channel. I say envy really lightly, but one of the things I love about your show is like every time I'm in the chat, I'm seeing some of the same names. Like, it's growing. It's not like, all right, the same five people, but I love that it's like an appointment every week with like some of my favorite friends. It's like, oh, Atomic Hound said blah blah blah, right? And it's like, yo, this is dope to see the same people and kind of have that time and space set aside for each other.
All right. So you asked earlier what's everybody's strongest suit on the show, and I didn't say mine.
Okay.
Community building is what I think I do best. And like overall like leadership. Like the other guys, they like to futz around and tell jokes and things like that. I tend to be a little bit more focused on like, all right, I need to make sure that the audience hears this. I need to make sure that they know this is coming up. And, yada yada yada. Um I so two things that inspired that. One is I grew up listening to the radio. And if you listen to the radio, you can pick up on things that the radio hosts do. Like at this specific time of day, they tell you what time it is. They tell you what the radio call sign is, WXRK, whatever it is, right? That's conditioning.
Hmm.
They condition you to know, all right, they're going to say this at this time. The radio station will play the same song at the same minute at
Hmm.
every hour. And
Yeah.
you catch that, right? It's conditioning. People have to be conditioned to expect certain things. And we have to hold attention. The whole game of YouTube is retention, right? I'm sure you've looked at your retention metrics at some point. We
Mm.
all have to play that game. And if we're not being interesting and we're not being compelling, then you turn away. Radio's highly competitive. It's the same thing here. There are other channels people can go to. Why should they stay here? I feel like my responsibility is to give them that why every single week. But the other thing, oh, sorry, did you want to?
No, you're good.
The other thing, I'm so used to podcasting with other people that the second somebody looks like they might have something to say,
Uh,
I just fall back. But the other thing is that I played a video game called World of Warcraft for a long time. And it was bad for me in a lot of ways. But the most important thing that I learned from that was how to manage people and how to build community with people because you cannot succeed in that game by yourself. You have to have people. And I learned like, okay, people will stick with you longer if they like who you are than if they like what you provide, right? There are other channels that are, they're big, much bigger. They have more access to creators than we do. They can do bigger and better giveaways than we can. They've got better graphics, whatever the case is, right? But I look at those channels and I see things and I'm like, oh, you guys go live and nobody super chats.
mm,
Why? Because they don't care about you. They're not invested in you. They're not checking for you. They're checking for who the guest is. They're checking for what the topic is. On our channel, I take pride in being able to say people are checking for us. So the numbers stay consistent. And frankly, they're smaller. The numbers are we have way less subscribers than you, way less subscribers than your mint, but our actual numbers are competitive because we have sticky subscribers. People want to see what we're going to do every single week. They're not checking only when we're talking about this or that. They're checking for everything.
facts. Facts. Now, speaking of things that you do every single week, right? As we're filming this, you guys just finished the direct market deep dive. And for those who aren't familiar, on the Comics Pals, there's usually a topic every week, right? And it might be like a question like, oh, is DC having a better year than Marvel? Let's discuss, right? But other times it's like, all right, you know what? We're going to do like a history lesson in as many parts as it needs to be. So there was a new 52 deep dive and it's like what I love about the deep dive episodes is they kind of combine two things that I love on YouTube. One are these like incredibly well researched and like highly produced video essays. You know, some people do it better than others, but the point of it really is the research. But then the other thing is that banter that I normally get watching back issues on Comic Pop. And it's like you will bring all the research, all the quotes, all the stuff, and I'm like glued. And then at the same time, I get the jokes and I get the questions and the discussion points from everybody else. But those things they have to be hard to do and super time consuming. Why was it important to bring deep dives to the Comics Pals?
Because that kind of thing is extremely important to me. I think that having an understanding of the environment that you are in, and by that, in this case, I mean the environment of comics, is critically important to engaging with comics. There are so many misinformed comics readers. And I'm not saying that to denigrate anybody. I'm just saying that there's a lack of knowledge, and that's okay. But I am included in that. Before I did the first deep dive, which was the history of Alan Moore's Twilight of the Superheroes, which for those of you who don't know, it is a basically a manifest that he created, like a Bible for this story he wanted to tell that would be an event inside DC's continuity that would sort of be like the end for all of DC, like the final DC story. It never came out because of what happened with Watchmen, but the actual text of it, what he planned, that Bible came out. And my big question going into researching that before I knew I was even going to do it as a deep dive, just for my own purposes, was how do I feel about Alan Moore as a human being in the context of his life and his experiences with DC in relation to this Twilight of the Superheroes thing? And I found that I came away with different opinions about Alan Moore post deep dive than I had before. I challenged myself with a question and I resolved that question in my mind and answered it for myself, which is the first and foremost most important thing. I have to care and be engaged in what the subject is and find a way to transform my thought process through the deep dive. Otherwise, it's pointless. I could just come on here and dictate what I think. But using historical context, using quotes, everything else, I'm learning. All it is me sharing with you what I learned. And that's the most important thing because learning is the most important thing in life. So that's really all it is.
You know what's funny? I have a channel called Deep Dives. There's only one video on it, but back when like video essays were all the rage and I was trying to come up with meatier content than like here's a comic book haul. I was like, oh, I'll do video essays. And so I started a second channel and the video that's on there is the what did I call it? It's the Michael Davis video, right? Like who's the real creator of Static Shock?
Okay.
And the whole point of it was somehow I had become Facebook friends with Michael Davis, who is one of the four founders of Milestone Media. And every, I was going to say every so often, it's really very often, like at increasing rates, he's on Facebook, like sort of complaining about how he doesn't get his just due for Static. And it's interesting because it's like he's not asking for money. He's not really asking to be compensated, but it's like when you credit the people that made this, make sure you credit me because my blood, sweat, and tears went into this. And this is the only thing that I've done that has the potential to outlive me. And the all the his allegation is that he basically created all of the names and backstories for all of the sort of supporting characters in the Static universe. So like his sister, Static's sister is named after Michael Davis's sister. His mom's named after his mom, and so on. And so, you know, and there's a lot of tragedy in that story. But the point of it though is I wanted to make this video like, okay, well, how much of this like can I prove and can there be like an actionable step to take after someone watches this video? And I found that was like super difficult because one, maybe I was just a little too close to the story as just like someone who's just a big Milestone super fan, right? Like I've had Dennis Cowan on my channel. Everyone that I can be friendly with at Milestone, like I've been friendly with. And it was just like, it felt weird at one point. It was almost like being a, okay, super black moment, being that little kid on Soul Food, right? Like trying to keep your aunts and uncles from fighting.
Word,
Like,
yes, yes.
But that's what it felt like making the video. And so like, if you watch it, it starts with like, oh, here's the thing. Here's this stuff that you didn't know. And here's the proof that Michael Davis did what he said he did. And then the end of the video is like, well, to be fair, the other founders didn't say this or that. And this, and it was just, it kind of ended with like, I feel like it ended not in a better place. It was just like, here's the information, do with it what you will. And also to play devil's advocate, here we go. And that was kind of it. But what I love about your deep dives, like you said, one, it starts from a point of curiosity. It starts from like, what do I want to know about this? How will having this knowledge shape my opinion of what's happened? And then, you know, you draw your conclusion and you're very forceful, not forceful, but you're solid in that conclusion, right? Like the direct market deep dive, I was very fascinated by because it's like, okay, this whole history of how we got here, and it's in the wake of Diamond declaring bankruptcy and getting sold and kind of auctioned off to the highest bidder. I just read yesterday that Diamond Select Toys just got disbanded. So there's that. So it's like the end of Diamond is happening as we speak. And it seems like the question that you had was like, was Diamond good for the industry or not? Because Diamond definitely took a lot of crap from the COVID years on. But it's like, if it was all that bad, like, how did they end up rising to power in the first place? And I think, the conclusion was pretty clear. Like Diamond was good for the industry for as long as it was good for the industry. They probably needed some real business people there, but the direct market would not be the same if there were actual business people involved. So,
Right. Right. Yeah, man. I think that the deep dives for me are critically important to do. It allows me to scratch an itch in myself that I can't scratch anywhere else. I think it's unique. A lot of the channels in our space, there are channels like Matt, right? At Matt with
yeah,
like three T's.
all the
He
T's.
does incredible visual essays. I can't do that. I don't have the talent for video editing and all that type of jazz. That's not my thing. It's not my skill set. But amongst our circle, there's not really anybody doing deep dives like that. And so it's like, all right, this is what we can offer that's unique. This is the thing that I uniquely can do.
Yeah,
And as you know, when you're on YouTube, you got to find your niche, man. You got to find that thing you offer that no one else does. And that's something that you can really only get at the Comics Pals.
fair. Yeah. I don't know what I offer uniquely anymore.
You're dope.
I'm
You're
such,
the dopest man on YouTube.
oh, thank you. I'm in such limbo. It's funny because I came in at a time where everybody was recording videos on potatoes. And so it was like, well, I got a high quality camera, right? I care about my lighting. And then it was I'm just buying a bunch of stuff. And so people can see the stuff that I buy. It's like, well, that gets old real quick. Plus, I want to like know what I'm buying and not just be buying stuff because other people said it was cool. And then, over time, I think the mainstay of the channel has been the pull list. And I think the aspect that separates my pull list videos from like everybody else, I feel like it's kind of a spectrum. Like there's somebody like Comics with Bueller who will literally just show every book, every cover, right? There's someone like even like Rockin' Robbie who doesn't do a pull list show, but he does a review show of every comic he read every week. I love the consistency of Robbie's show. And then there's another channel. It's called like Bruce and Stephanie Comics, which I don't even know like how active they are anymore. But they have like the sort of here's what I'm buying, here's something that just has a cool cover, here's a new number one or whatever. And so I kind of have borrowed a little bit from like that type of structure. But I think the thing that separates me is just being honest about like when I'm not feeling something or if I'm behind. And then also, I only have this so much money to spend on these books. So we're going to talk about the budget and something's going to have to give. Now, whether or not I actually drop a book is a different story. But for purposes of the show and keeping me, on my toes, like I have to look at it and draw this line.
So what makes your channel unique to me is that honesty aspect. You bring yourself to the table. And that's my favorite part of the pull list is that you have a budget. It's like, what should you do if you're a comics reader on a budget? Most people that read comics are insane. All right. 50,
Yeah.
even $50 a week on anything is like what you're nuts, right? But like if you have to limit yourself, here's what I would do with my $50. This is my game plan. And I think you put people on a hook every single week to want to know what makes the cut for BJ's $50.
Yeah.
I think that is very compelling. And you're very honest about what you like, what you're not liking as much. Your show, the Pull List show, kind of functions as a review show in a way too,
Yeah.
because sometimes, like, let's say randomly, Amazing Spider-Man, right? Number 4, you're like, well, you know what? Issue 3 was pretty good, so I'm excited for 4, and that's why it's at the top of my stack, But this issue of X comic I didn't like as much, so it's kind of on the chopping block. I love that aspect of what you do.
And I appreciate that. Um, yeah, so we talked about I skipped around. I kind of skipped your formative years, mostly because there's a really comprehensive episode of the Comics Pals that talks about like just the history of the show, from, working at a comics outlet to striking it out on your own to swapping out team members and then kind of making the jump to YouTube. I'm curious about like the jump from strictly podcasting or even doing like written articles and reviews and stuff like that to YouTube and the video game? Like how how has that been for you?
Uh, at first it was a struggle, man. Not gonna lie to you because I didn't come into this with any particular skill set in terms of like production. So, the only person who had production anything was Marco. When we met Marco, he already knew how to edit audio, he knew how to edit video. He did some of that stuff at the place that we were at before. That was a big reason why we wanted to make sure Marco was a part of the team because he had skills. Um, and so that made YouTube like an impossibility because we were just so technologically inept that like we just didn't know how to make that happen. And so the podcast was being uploaded to YouTube, but it was audio only, no like great thumbnail, no images for the video at all, very crude. And we were not connecting. It took we didn't hit 1,000 subscribers until 2023, I think.
Mm,
Um, so that's pretty recent considering we started in 2018. That
yeah,
goes to show you how much it took for us to get to this place. And I don't know if you've ever done just strict podcasting before, but if you don't have a name brand, or you didn't start in the 2000s, it's very hard to
yeah,
connect in a strict podcast sense. YouTube is where it's at for small creators that don't have a name. The discoverability is there. Everything is there. Um, I've learned a lot throughout my journey. If I had to start a new YouTube channel tomorrow, I'm pretty sure that I could build it up to be as big as the Comics Pals with way less time,
yeah,
way less time invested because of what I know now today that I didn't know before. So it was a very arduous journey. We were talking to nobody for the longest. But then 2023, 2022, 2023, things just started to snowball. We've made, I mean, right now, today, we have 5,000, 5,000, over 5,000 subscribers. In 2 years, we got to that space versus the prior 5 or 6 where we were talking to no one.
right.
We
Yeah.
had our groove.
Yeah. What I love about podcasting is sort of the intimacy, right? It's a closed off audience, right? Podcasting is very much like if you know, you know. Like just for transparency's sake, I've got what do I have? Like 16,000 subscribers on 17,000 subscribers on YouTube right now.
Wow.
And but the podcast is good for like 100 downloads a week if
Right.
I'm just doing audio only. Right. And so that's why the video aspect of it has been so important for me. And I don't do the podcast for the numbers. I do it for the conversations because I feel like that's what I can do that's unique to me. Like it's just the curiosity and asking the question. But yeah, it's fun. I've done podcasting before. I had a music business podcast before all of this. And that kind of grew. And I think it's just because musicians are into audio. And so they tell their friends. And then also it's like I was giving out music business. It was education. Um, but like with something like this, it's like you kind of pick your friends in a way. Like this is who I'm gonna spend time with on my morning commute. Like I remember Comic Pop for like 5 minutes had the Wake Up with Comic Pop show.
Yep.
I was like, I love this. Like this is dope. But it's like you there's only so much bandwidth you have. Whereas on YouTube, it just kind of feels endless. Like, oh, here's a cool video. But if I'm doing just audio, it's like, all right, well, it's gonna take me 30 minutes to get to work today. I'll listen to this guy and Joe Rogan tomorrow. And that's it. But
Right. Yeah, we are trying as YouTubers to get as much of your attention as possible, right? Like that is the goal ultimately. If I could be live every day, I'd be live every day. I love going live. It's my favorite thing to do. Um, but there are only so many hours in a day for us and the listeners.
mm,
And it's so important to me that we're always providing value commensurate with your time. And I think that's something that people don't always consider. why should somebody watch or listen to you versus the endless sea of other people that are doing this? Do you know how much competition there is, even in this space? Comics are niche, but comics on YouTube, there are so many channels. It's ridiculous. There's probably a YouTube channel for every person that actively reads comic books. That's how
Yeah.
many channels there are.
Yeah. It's true. We kind of have our categories. Like I know I probably watch more comics YouTube than I should. Like, as someone who makes YouTube videos, there's no reason I should be watching all these people, right? Like, I even have to be careful because now you guys do like a Monday video, which the pull list used to be a Monday show, but life has just made it a Tuesday show for me. Uh, but now I have to be careful because it's like when I'm watching you guys' pull list show and I watch it just because I like y'all. And then I'm like, dang, like now I'm gonna say the same thing Tyler said about this book. Like it's just gonna happen, right? But I just love interacting and seeing what other people bring to the table, right? Like my man Dom from the Comic Book Report, he reviews trade paperbacks and gives them a letter grade at the end of each episode. And I just find that to be super unique and interesting. Um, you know, Omar is going to tell you which Marvel books are coming up, and he's also going to have like the first overview of a lot of that stuff. And besides that, he's got like encyclopedic knowledge of stuff, like because he actually reads everything before he presents it to you, which is more than I could say about most people, right? And I can keep going on and on, naming different people's channels and what I like about them. But all that to say, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of people out there. And for as little money as there is in this, I just think it's like when you find a channel that is as dope as the Comics Pals, it's like you gotta support it, right? Like I can't be dropping $50 super chats every week, right? But I'm so happy to like give what little I can and like even just like the thumbs up and like the share, like all of that. It just means the world to be able to do that because you guys do such great work.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that, and I do appreciate everybody's support so, so much. I mean, the fact that, like, again, the fact that you're even in our chat, the fact that you're on our Patreon is just like, what? I've been watching comics are dope. Like, you're you as a person are somebody that I liked way before we got to interact, and now you're in our chat just talking. Like that's mind blowing to me. But you said something about like you watch more channels than you should. And I actually feel like it's important to do that. Like it's
Mm,
market research. But it's also building bonds and building connections and relationships, which is so important to what we do. I mean, getting Sal and Omar on the show did more for us than having Tom King, Scott Snyder, Al Ewing, every interview we've ever done combined.
yeah.
Combined. In terms of subscribers, in terms of I think did you say you found us through one of those interviews?
I think it was the comic pop. I think I saw you guys interview Sal, and that
Yeah.
was what put me on to the show.
Exactly. So we wouldn't even be talking right now necessarily if we hadn't already interviewed Sal.
Hmm.
So it's so important. It's the networking aspect. You know, we're all friends. Like at New York Comic Con, I got to chill with you, which was super fun. I got to hang out with Sal for a couple of beats, which was fun. We ran into Omar, and that was really cool. And it's like, yo, this is a beautiful community.
Yeah.
This is it, man. We don't have to engage with the side of comics YouTube that sucks
Right.
because there's enough of us that we can pool our resources and we can share our audience and we can help each other out and do things. Like, that's what I've always wanted, man.
Yeah. No, that's the part I love because part of the reason I even got into this was because I'd be watching a comic review, right? I got into comics super late. It's like 2019. I'm reading House of X, stuff like that. And so I would read a comic and then look up a review to make sure I understood what I read. Like, what does this mean? Who is this character? I don't know, whatever. And it was like I'm watching these reviews, and the review would like, it would go from like a cool comics review to like, why are there so many black people in this? And it was like, what? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like, am I not welcome here? Am I not turtly enough for the Turtle Club? And so it's like, I wanted my channel to just be like an inclusive place, right? And it's like we're not all gonna like the same stuff. Like I don't care what side of the political spectrum you lean on, right? Like the truth is, none of us are probably like extreme left or extreme right. We probably have a lot more in common somewhere in the middle than most would have you believe. But it's those hot button issues that kind of get people riled up and get them clicking. But
Yeah.
anyway, I absolutely love that aspect of like just the world. But you're right. Like one of my favorite memories in comics to date is being at that comiXology event for New York Comic Con. And when it's all over, like, first of all, we're in a room with Scott Snyder, Chip Zdarsky, Alex Segura, like a who's who. Like anybody that you wanted to talk to in comics was probably in that room, right? And when the event is over, we're not like running over there handing out business cards. We're all talking, we're talking to each other, right? Like the craziest thing. It's wild.
Yeah. I think people don't necessarily know how fun this is too. Like, you can catch me complaining about this or that every now and then, but bro, I'm having the time of my life doing this. I absolutely am. There are a lot of perks that go with the hard work. And like, it's important for people to understand that for BJ's purposes, you guys are his financial lifeline for this show. Like, you guys make this happen. You said 16,000, 17,000 subscribers. Like, everybody who, makes sure that they join the channel, everybody who likes the videos, everybody who does all that stuff, they make this something worth doing.
Yeah,
And you guys, you guys are the community that we're talking about. It's all you. It's all you. And so, yes, we have a blast as podcasters, but the crummy parts, the community makes better.
for sure. For sure. Like I can give you all the horror stories. I try to give them every now and then just so you don't think it's all sunshine and roses, right? But like the struggle when all right. So the biggest conflict in my life as a YouTuber right now is trying to get materials to review on the show because I'm coming to terms with the fact that I can't just buy every comic. Doesn't matter how cool the comic is. I got a budget, right? And even if I didn't have a budget, there's only so much time in the day to read this stuff. So whatever book I can find like a watermarked copy of and they can send to my email, that's one less that I got to go out into the world and try to find at my LCS because I missed the FOC deadline, blah, 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 blah. Right. The struggle to get into some of these offices and just be like, hey, can I see Absolute Batman like now as opposed to 3 weeks from now? Is it's insane. But I don't remember where I was going with that. But
It,
go what were you saying?
it was in relationship to the horror stories versus what makes this worth doing, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Cause I think people think it's like it's sweet, right? Like you think like it's like, oh, it's free comics or it's this, it's that. It's like, no. Oh, so the struggle is like the hardest thing right now is to like find material to review. And the worst feeling ever is striking up that relationship, getting a review copy of a book, making your review, posting it, and it gets like 12 views. And it's like, dang, this wasn't worth it. I didn't create the value for either the audience or the publisher. Because if the audience was interested, they'd watch it. And if they watched it, the publisher would be like, oh, we need to do this again. Right. And that feeling sucks. Like feeling like you just didn't provide value to somebody is trash. Um,
But
just
you're thinking about that though. That's the thing. There are so many channels that I look at. Like they'll have just because he's been on my mind, Al Ewing, let's say. They'll have Al Ewing on. And it's like, I know that to get Al Ewing on your show, sometimes it can be a little tough. He's a very busy guy. All these creators are busy, right? And so you bring Al Ewing on your show, but you do no promotion. You don't make it a community event. You don't build it up. And so the man takes his time out to come on your show and it gets 40 views, 50 views, and you've got a subscriber base of thousands, but you're not doing anything to provide the value that is going to make it worth his time to appear, your time to do it, and your audience's time to show up. You're thinking about that, and I'm telling you, you are way ahead of the game by just thinking like, what can I do to make this something worth watching?
Right. So, but yeah, it's the thing that makes it worth doing for me is, like you said, the community. Like my favorite comments to get is like, "Oh man, I wasn't checking for that, but you put me on." Right, and I see that so often now. Um, in my haul last week, I bought like this super random like Bible story graphic novel. I just happened to see it on Comic Hub, so I pre-ordered it and it came in. And so somebody commented like, "Yo, these are all cool. Where'd you get that Bible book? Like, can I buy that?" And I'm like, "See, like this makes it worth it." I did a review of I mean, there's a million books that I've reviewed that people are that somehow caught. Right. I think the biggest review on my channel, ironically, is of like the Kingstone Bible set.
Hmm.
It's like a graphic novel Bible trilogy, and it got like 60,000 views or something crazy. And it's like when you search
Wow.
for that Bible, that video comes up. But it's like it's providing a resource, looking at something that most people aren't necessarily looking at, but giving people something to that they can latch onto. Like, oh snap, this is for me too. And that's my goal with Comics Are Dope. It's like I want everyone to feel connected to something. You're probably, and you might not like Batman as much as I do. You may not like Static as much as I do, right? But for me, it's important, especially if it's a book that other people aren't checking for. Like, who else is going to tell you Milestone Compendium Volume 4 got delayed and doesn't come out till June, right? Like, I got to do it. I got to put on for the squad. And so I love it.
And the best part is that you're doing it positively. You're not you're not doing it for clickbait. You know, you don't have any of the BS going on your channel. We at the Comics Pals, like, yeah, you know, we'll talk about certain groups and we'll talk about hot button topics. It's not for clickbait, it's because that's the type of stuff that I'm really interested in.
Mm.
Um, but we're, I don't want to use the word saving, but like, we're an alternative for people who, like, you don't know how many people I've heard from who jumped on YouTube because they wanted to know more about comics, and their first few channels that they checked out are alt-right Comicsgate.
Yep.
And it's like, whoa, I just wanted to hear about Ultimate Spider-Man. I don't know about any of this other stuff.
Right.
And then hopefully they find you or they find us. And now they've landed somewhere where they can be themselves and not have to worry about all that other crap that is dominating the space. So in a way, I feel like we have a responsibility to provide that lane.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I got to keep people out of the He Man Comic Haters Club. It's important. So, um, it's funny. One of the things I was going to ask you, I feel like you've answered it throughout the course of this conversation, but some people might fancy themselves writers or artists, right? Like I fancy myself like much like you, a community builder. I feel like that's my biggest asset on YouTube. But when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, like what are you seeing? Like, is it like, okay, I'm a journalist, I'm a podcaster, I'm a like, especially in this weird space where it's like we're all fans first, and it's like trying to make that transition from like fan to respected member of the press to outlet, whatever. Where do you see yourself in that whole spectrum?
So I want and wanted to be a comics writer. That was that goal was solid in my mind when I was 17. And I thought that, all right, I can't afford at that time to pay someone to work with me on art. And every time I tried to make it work with someone, I've worked with like 6 or 7 artists at this point. It just didn't work out. And so I was like, all right, well, while I'm trying to make that happen, I'd like to be able to talk about comics and engross myself um, in that space as much as I can. How do I do that? And then that's sort of how I had another podcast before this, which was called Total Geek. And I started that with a few real life friends because I wanted to talk comics. And um, I thought, all right, I'll start a podcast, right?
Mhm.
Um, I did not realize how far that would take me. And so now when you ask me that question, my answer is everything. My answer is all of that. I don't limit myself in my mind to where I am this or that. I'm all of that. Um, I'm gonna be a published comic book writer. Every single week, I get to flex my writing skills, for not to say like, oh yeah, it's a big flex. I'm just saying like I get to exercise and
Exercise
push.
that muscle.
Yeah, with the Patreon uh origins, the
Yeah.
superhero and super villain origins that we do. And so I get to express that part of myself. I get to express the part of myself that loves interviews by interviewing people. You know what I'm saying? I get to express the part of myself that loves journalism and history by doing the deep dives. So the things in my life that I don't necessarily feel fulfilled, I get to fulfill them through this podcast, and everything else will come. But I am all of that.
Or yeah, yeah. No, I love it. I love it. It's funny. Like for me, if you ask me like how I view myself, I'd probably just say I'm a YouTuber first and foremost, right? Like if I wasn't making videos about comics, I'd be making videos about like cooking or whatever, right? Like I just smoked some chicken last week or this weekend. Like it's whatever I'm interested in, I just enjoy making multimedia about it. I've been a photographer, I've been a videographer, I've hosted a podcast, I've been an educator, and it's like being on YouTube is a mixture of all those things. And now that I'm doing the podcast, you know, I'm a sucker for a good interview, right? Like Barbara Walters, Oprah, like
Yep.
all the way on down, right? Like it's just, I will watch an hour long interview of somebody that I don't care about at all. Like, but it's just like, it's cool to me to hear, like, okay, what inspired you? Where'd you grow up? What's your story? How does it inform this thing that you present to us every day? Right? Like, why do you look like that, Shabuzi? Why are you wearing a cowboy hat with wicks? Like, how does that even happen? Right? Like, these are questions that I just genuinely have. And I don't know. I have like standout like interviews in my head. Like there's the Tupac interview for like it's like a Christmas thing he did with MTV where he's just but it, like for whatever reason he's just talking about like Black Power and resistance movements and he's like we were asking with the civil rights movement, asking with the Black Panthers, but now we're about to just take this. It's about to just be revolution, right? And it's like I don't know who got him riled up, but that's an amazing conversation. But so being able to do that and have these conversations on the podcast, I don't care if 12 people listen. Like, I just love it. So I definitely can identify with like through this kind of fulfilling so many different aspects of life. Like, and this is probably going to be my last question for you, but I'm curious to know because I know I've got so much stuff on my shelves that would not have been there if not for a conversation I had with that creator, right? Like, I watched Gargoyles as a kid, but like, I didn't need a Gargoyles comic, but I've got them. I've got them because I talked to Greg Weisman. I read a whole bunch of Greg Pak comics just because I just like who he is as a person, and I want to support that, even if I'm not a high fantasy dude or I don't know much about like Asian Pacific Islander culture, and like that's his bag sometimes. What are the things that are, or how has being a podcaster shaped your relationship with comics as a hobby? Like, do you find it a chore to read stuff? Is it hard to get through? How's your stack looking? Can you fit your comics in your house?
Oh man. So I I say that my relationship to comics is probably stronger now than it was when I started reading. And when I started reading, I was eating it up. I would read like Civil War, for example, which is my favorite, like anything in comics.
Mhm.
Um, I would read the issues that came out already, and then the new one every single time that a new one came out. So I've probably read in the course of it releasing, I probably read Civil War like 4 or 5 times just because I was so in love with it. But nowadays, I don't have the time to do that, right? Nor do I have the desire, but I have something else. And that is a community that I deeply love and deeply care about. And it's fun to read comics. It's fun to read them, and it's fun to have to figure out, like, well, what did I think about that? Like, having to think critically. I can't just show up to the show and say, "Oh, that sucked. I don't care about that." No one wants to hear that, right? I have to come with some sort of nuanced opinion. And that requires you to read the comics a little deeper. So you
Mhm.
can't just speed read through it. You've got to focus. And that is a big part of it. Another part of it is you interact, like you just said, you interact with a creator. Now all of a sudden you're reading their work that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise. Quick story about that. Kelly Thompson. She's the belle of the ball, so to speak. She is on top of the world in comics right now. And I had not read a single Kelly Thompson anything until we had her on the show like 2 years ago to talk about Black Cloak, which is an indie book of hers. And I read it. I loved it. I was like, where has this woman been all my life? I didn't know she was cooking like this. And now I read everything Kelly Thompson puts out because I genuinely love her stuff. But what would it have taken for me to give her a shot if not having her on the show? Right.
Right.
Um, so it's taught me a lot of things about being more open-minded, about giving creators a shot, about looking at things from a different angle, or at least trying to, and also recognizing that I'm not the be-all, end-all in terms of like whatever I think about a book isn't fact for the world; it's a fact for me. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I don't like Wonder Woman right now, the current Wonder
Tripping.
Woman book.
Absolutely tripping.
So there you go. And guess what? It doesn't bother me that you feel like that because you are completely entitled to that opinion. And that space of disagreement but respect is exactly where I love to be because that's how you can have real conversations.
Facts. Facts. I will say, I was kind of disappointed with the way the Sovereign arc ended. Like there was so much buildup, like 18 issues of buildup, and then the final confrontation is like Wonder Woman, like kind of finger wagging, like, "All right, give up now." And it was like, "Wait, what? That was no fight? Like that's the anyway." I'm still enjoying the run though. That's probably one of the most beautiful books in comics right now. Like,
Oh,
it
yeah.
looks amazing. Um, but yeah, so I think for me, the development has been trying to understand or develop the language to explain why I like something or don't. Because often it's a gut feeling.
Yeah.
Like right now, I'm not vibing with One World Under Doom as much as I probably could. And I've realized that it's mostly because like I'm reading a book about an evil man leading the world while, we're dealing with all this weird stuff in the current administration. And so it's like I'm watching headlines, right? I'm watching my stocks go crazy, not in a good way, right? Like just all this stuff is happening. And when I go to my fiction, Doom is taking over the world, not by like mind controlling anyone, but just by appealing to their base level fear and instincts, just like this dude that's got my stocks going crazy. It's like that's difficult, right? But it's like I need to be able to say this is what's difficult about this comic for me. And if you can get past that, you're probably going to love this comic because beyond that, it's really fun, right? What I hate about Amazing Spider-Man, not a whole lot, just the fact that it double ships and I got to like deal with a stack every time I want to read it, you know? And that's the thing that is like the deeper I get into this, the more opportunities present themselves. It's like that's what I feel like I'm trying to exercise or develop the most because I'm not going to be able to read everything. You're not necessarily going to get a year end. Like you guys do the Pally Awards, and I love the Pally Awards, but I'm like, I don't know if I can undertake something like that because there's so much stuff that's going to get left off the list that I just never touched. Like the last half of the Gargoyles run by Greg Weisman that didn't come out in trade when it was supposed to. And here we are, right? Like, and so there's going to be stuff that fell off my radar. Was it not the best of the year? It might have been the absolute best of the year, but I don't know who's the arbiter of that. The Eisners? No.
You on your channel. That's what I've come to sort of understand about this whole deal. Like you bring up the Pallies. We only include in the Pallies what we have reviewed on the show. So that's discluding so many comics that it's almost comical, right?
Hmm.
But the point is that people who are in our community, they know that. They know what we generally like and don't like and what we read and don't read. And so for us, for our purposes, these are the best comics of the year that we've read. And if anyone isn't cool with that, it's like, well, great. So what are the best comics that you read this year? And that's where the conversation piece comes into play. So my North Star with this is always just be me. Be me. Like whether people like me or don't like me, something about what I am doing works. And people show up every week to hear me talk about what I like and don't like. And so I'm not going to switch that up. So what I say are the best comics to me. And if you disagree with that, let's talk about it. Once again, respectful disagreement is exactly where I like to be. So let's do it.
That's fair. That's fair. Look, this year is 5 years of comics are dope. I'll start the countdown probably sometime in June. Give it a good 5 month till November. And maybe I'll do the Dopey Awards. Like just because the Dopies just sounds like a cool thing to give out. And I will go full copyright infringement and just put Dopey in a gold cast. I might use AI to do it. I'll get Marco to do it so I don't get in trouble.
There you go. There you go. He
But
has no problem with it.
right. And so with that, right, looking ahead, what are your goals for the Comics Pals? Where you see yourself?
Yeah, man. So I really want to see the community expand and grow. I've accepted that because we're mostly a live channel, um, massive growth is going to be difficult to come by, but stickiness is what I'm looking. We were talking, I don't remember if it was on or off air. We were talking about like money, the splits, right?
Yeah.
The bag. And there are channels who don't go live, which means they can't get super chats, and they don't have a Patreon, or they do, but it's not busting. I slavishly work on making sure that our Patreon is valued
Mm.
because if I'm going to come off $5 for you, there better be a tremendous reason. And so I work really hard to make sure that everything that you see from us is quality because that is what's going to bring people to the yard. Quality and personality. That's it. And so my
And
goals,
milkshakes. They made a whole song about it.
all right, listen, bro. You took it there, not me. And I like to point something out to you, BJ, by the way.
Um,
I have not cursed one single time.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's not even, I have nothing against people cursing. It's just usually I have at least one of my kids with me. And so, like, I'll turn on the Comics Pals in the car and then I'm like, oh, snap. I forgot what show this was. This is great.
I just thought it would be a fun challenge, sort of, to come on here and not curse at all, which is not in my nature, but it's actually been kind of a fun challenge.
Right, right. We're what? Almost 90 minutes in? It's got to be a record.
Yeah, dude, you have no idea. But as far as the goals, man, it's to continue to grow honestly, to continue to bring people into the fold. I really, really love community and I love meeting new people. Unless someone has been in our chat and spoken before, if they have not done that, I know every single person in the chat. I've spoken to them, I've said their name before. I know these people. I know what they like, I know what they don't like, I know what they want to hear, I know what they don't want to hear. That is something that is extremely important to me. I love these people and I want to bring more people into that mixture. Obviously, I would love to make more money. I've also learned that that comes with time. Bringing people in, some people are going to want to spend money, some might not, but it's all growth. And frankly, bro, I take pride in the fact that this is a place that you can come. The Comics Pals community is a place that you can come, be exactly who you are. And look, they do book clubs on our Discord server that I'm not in. None of the actual pals are a part of that. That's the community doing its own thing. What is the marker of a successful community if not a community that functions without its leadership?
Right. Yeah.
That's those are my goals.
Facts. Facts. Yeah. It's interesting. We were talking offline, right, about just kind of putting all this stuff in perspective. And because I feel like every YouTuber's got the dream of like, if I could just wake up every morning and only have to do this, right? That'd be awesome. And there's a few channels we look up to that have life like that. I'm not in that boat. I'm not even close, right? So a good secondary goal is like, well, at least I can pay for my comics with this. And
Right.
most months I'm successful. Every now and then I have to dip into like a stash from somewhere, but it's whatever. But for me, my goal for this at this point is just putting people on to dope stories that they may not have heard from otherwise, right? Like, sure, I'm going to tell you what Marvel trades are coming out next week, because of course I'm going to do that. But you're not going to hear about like Megascope comics from everybody, right? There's an Ella Fitzgerald graphic novel biography that I've got sitting on the desk. This thing just came in the mail. This is Elric. I've never heard of Elric from Titan Comics.
Oh,
Um, this comes out June 10th, and it's just like this high fantasy dude with a sword fighting monsters. And I'm like, this is cool. Who's going to talk about this? If not me. So that's what I'm trying to do at this point. I don't want to be so niche that nobody comes to the party, but we can talk about Batman versus Superman all day. We can talk about like, what's going to drive the latest MCU hype all day. But if me talking about a book is the difference between, you know, it getting canceled or not, then I'm gonna try to talk about that book.
yeah. I respect that a lot, especially in a climate where, a lot of times if you're not talking to Marvel or DC, you're talking to nobody. But it's that honesty and that personality aspect that people will come and show up for you more so than the specific thing that you are discussing. And one thing I wanted to say too is that in other spaces, there's a lot of competition, right? Like if you're in radio, for example, so much competition, like regional radio.
Mhm.
Um, I don't feel that way. I don't feel that in the YouTube space. Like I don't look at you, BJ, as a competitor of mine. I actually look at you as an ally.
Right.
Um, you know, I don't look at your numbers and go, what do I have to do to compete with those numbers? I look at your numbers and I go, yo, that's what's up for BJ. I'm glad that that video hit, or whatever the case is. There's a camaraderie between a lot of us that's very genuine. I think it's very rare, and supporting the friends of your favorite YouTubers is cool too. Like there's cross pollination between our channels now. Like I see people in your comment section that I'm like, yo, that's homegrown. Like I know that person. Like they're
Right.
and I love that. I love when I see people that we that are on our Discord jump over and leave comments for you guys. That's what I want. If I can help you grow, I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the exact same way, right? Like I have the vidIQ app, and so like I put all my friends in the competitor section of the app, but really just because I like checking up on y'all. Like, oh, what's
Yeah.
popping for them these days, right? But yeah, no, I don't feel any competition. I don't feel like, oh, I gotta be bigger. I gotta do it big. I gotta do my overview before Omar. I'm not playing those games. Like it's
Exactly.
just I do what I can, especially now that we got another kid and I'm so busy. There is a great chance that I can do a video and a half a week, right? So my first focus is making sure the pull list is as good as it's going to be or it can be. And then the next focus is making sure that whatever came across my table, I can showcase the best of it and tell you why it's worth buying. Other than that, man, I'm just happy to be here.
I love it. I love it.
So, there were so many questions. I feel like this could go another couple of hours, but I'm gonna save that for a part two. But I do want to ask, for people who are looking to get into the comics pals, right? I've talked about a lot of different aspects of the show. I haven't talked too much about creator interviews. So, the parting question will be, what two or three interviews do you think they should check out on your channel?
So, we do creator interviews pretty frequently. It's a big part of what we do. It's gotten bigger over the last couple of years as our profile's gotten bigger. More channels say, or more people say yes to us, um, reach out to us. So it's a bigger part of what we do. And I love it. I love interviewing creators. These are oftentimes people I grew up looking up to, creators whose work I read on a weekly basis, people who, and I don't take it for granted that like there are probably a lot of people who would love to sit down and talk to Tom King for an hour about his work, and I get to do that, and I'm pretty privileged in that compared to other people who just read comics.
Right.
Um, I take it seriously. The only aspect of YouTube in which I am competitive is the interview space because it is deeply important to me that
Hmm.
I have the best interview with X person. That is what I am always trying to do is have the only interview that you need to watch with that person. That's what I want. And so to me, the best stuff that we've done, the best interviews that we have conducted are with Jeff Johns. We've had Jeff on 3 times, I think. The first one that we did with Jeff is a comprehensive career overview. And it was the first Jeff Johns interview that he did on any channel, I'm pretty sure, for a while
Hmm.
prior to ours. He wasn't, he for whatever reason, there just weren't any Jeff Johns interviews. But
Yeah.
then it was like after us and after Ghost Machine came out that there really started to be a lot more. But I like to think, we were there first. And you know, at least one of the best. And in my mind, that's how I look at it. Whether other people feel that way is whatever. I'm going into it to put in that level of effort to make sure it's the best. So the one we did with Jeff Johns, Rob V interviews always like keep me up at night after the fact because he's so
Hmm.
thoughtful, such a deep guy, really honest guy, and I love that. Um, Brian Edward Hill, Brian Hill is somebody that I think you should definitely link up with. So thoughtful, so intelligent. I love the way that he talks about his life experience because he's so raw with it. He's
Hmm.
so raw with it. And he's a black man in comics that isn't pigeonholed into only writing black characters. And I respect that. I
Right.
respect that because that's what always happens to us. We
Hmm.
only get to write our experience. And it's like, whoa, 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 what do you mean my experience? I wasn't a slave. I didn't live that life. So
Right.
don't call me for that only. I want to write Jean Grey. You know what I'm
Right.
saying too.
Yeah.
Um, and so I love that for him. And then if I'm shouting out one more, it'd be Tilly Walden, which is a bit of a curveball. But Tilly Walden, she did there's a Walking Dead video game by Telltale, and she did the comic book that like expands on that story about
Hmm.
Clementine. And nothing Tilly Walden has ever written would have been on my radar if it weren't for the fact that we somehow got an interview with her. She's a big deal, so of course we're not going to say no. And so I brushed up to be prepared for the interview, and I read something she wrote called Spinning. And it's a book about her genuine life experience as a teenager who was into figure skating. And that has nothing to do with me. I am not a lesbian teenage figure skater. But what I got out of that book is something so deep and profound and personal that it shook me. It shook me deeply. And then the conversation with her broke me down. And when I can feel like that, based on a conversation that we get to have, my hope is that it translates to others and they can have a similar experience. Or me being honest about what I experienced while reading it or talking to her will get them to go out and buy it and maybe have their own experience with her work. And so, really, those are the interviews that stand out the most to me. Although, if you named a creator who we've spoken to, I could talk to you for 10 minutes about the interview because that's how much effort I put into every single one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it shows. Every interview you guys do is great. Like I do these. I try to do like this whole conversational style, right? I feel like as of late, it just kind of shows it's a lack of preparation, right? Like I'm doing too many things at once, and so it's like, well, let's just talk about your day. How was your coffee this morning, right? But I love the way you approach your conversations. It's the same level of detail that you put into the deep dives. Like, I really do feel like if I watch a Comics Pals interview, I don't need to see another interview. And, the competitor in me hates that fact, right? Like, because I have the same goal. I want my interview with a person to be the one that they leave on the tombstone. Like, all right, well, if you never heard of this guy, listen to this. Right? That's just
Yep.
I don't know. It's just that's what I want. But you're definitely up there. Like, there's a few people who do like interviews better than no than everyone else, and you're up there. David Harper's up there. My man Bodder's up there, and I'm slowly plugging away. We'll get there. But with all that said, man, uh, I want to thank you guys for listening to this. I hope that you go and you follow the Comics Pals on YouTube, where they primarily reign. They've got their Discord server, which is a riot and is always active. Like, it's insane. If you join the Patreon, you get all sorts of perks, right? Like, I've joined at the level where I got like this cool like superhero origin story, and so it is like Shawn and or Marco or others kind of flexing this creative writing muscle, but they're building like this very interesting shared superhero universe with like characters that cross paths with each other, and it's all built on the members of the community. I don't know why this is an infomercial for the Comics Pals, but it's just a very fun place to be. It's how I've spent my Saturday mornings for the better part of 2 years at this point, and I can't get enough. So hopefully this conversation has convinced you to check them out. So all the links are in the show notes down below. And where else can they find you, Shawn?
Man, first of all, before I answer that, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for having me. This has been a pleasure. I love watching your interviews. You undersold yourself. I think you're very talented at it yourself. Um, and it's an honor for me to be here. I've actually never been interviewed, so this is a first. And it means a lot to me that you thought of me enough to ask me on. Um, you guys can find the Comics Pals at the Comics Pals on all social media platforms. We are live every single Thursday at 6 p.m. for Pals Pulls. That's our show where we talk about comics. We review 6 comics every single week. They tend to be the biggest and most important, quote unquote, from the week. But we also do try to get some indie books out there and hopefully put things on your radar that weren't otherwise. And then Saturdays, we're also live, as BJ alluded to, at 10:15 a.m. Eastern. That's where you're going to get your big, meaty conversation about this or that. As he talked about, we just finished the direct market deep dive, where for 3 straight weeks, we dove deep into the history of this thing that we all engage with but don't know a lot about, called the direct market. And hopefully, if you listen to that, you will come out more informed as a consumer of comics and a lover of the medium. Um, if you do nothing else that we say today, the most important thing that you can do is be a good human being when you are interacting with others online. We are here to share love. We are absolutely here to share love. That doesn't mean you love every comic you read, and it doesn't mean you love every person that you engage with, but it does mean that the basis of all your interactions is love. And if it's not that, you got to reevaluate because there is enough hate in this world. There is way too much. And what we get to do that's beautiful is share a love of comics. That's why we're here.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. So, with all that said, like I said, I'll leave all of Shawn's links in the description and the show notes. Um, Go check him out. After that, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today.
Take care,
Peace.
guys.